Welcome friends to another r/entitled parents video. Today we feel the wrath of some seriously entitled parents. But first, a story from an anonymous poster. I told an entitled mom her son was going to be an r-pist, and I honestly feel no shame for it. So I was covering for a kinder class, I usually teach older, nearby and hosted by the same school as a parent and taught sort of class, where parents can come and play with their babies while they wait for their kids to finish class. Since kinder doesn't go as long, the basic rules for their admittance to the parent and taught class is 1. Your baby must always be within arm's reach. 2. Your baby cannot leave the class or interrupt another. And 3. No physical touch of other kids or students. Since I'm subbing, I don't actually know which kids belong to which parents. Older kids also don't have to be enrolled for parents to join these classes. It's also not uncommon to have babies run to older siblings when they see them. I started to do an obstacle course with my kids in the gym to kill some of their energy, and so they could have fun. The baby was at the other side of the gym. One of the babies, a 2-year-old boy, runs over and hugs this 4-year-old girl in my class. I think nothing of it and ignore it, assuming they're siblings. The mom comes over and brings the little boy back, but then he runs over and hugs her again and again. And when I say hug, I mean like chokehold. She can't get out and he won't let go until the mom pries them apart. Still, I leave it for the mom to deal with, but I do notice the girl getting annoyed and continuously struggling against the boy and telling him to get off of her and saying no and stop hugging me, and she's clearly in a lot of discomfort over this. So I start moving closer to pay more attention. That's when I hear the mom say something about running off with strangers. I ask the girl if that's her mom and she says no. She's incredibly uncomfortable with him touching her, and I tell her that if they come over again and I'm not looking, then to come find me and I'll deal with it. The boy comes over again. I see it, but before the mom even bothers to walk over, the girl pushed the boy down. He falls, starts crying. Then the mom decides it's worth her time to come over. I leave it because 1, the girl said no multiple times and nothing's been done. Clearly words aren't working. 2, the mom clearly had no intention of stopping it. 3, get out of my class. You're not supposed to be over here. Maybe I'm teaching a baby self-defense class. You don't know to keep your kid out. So the mom comes over and starts yelling and berating the little girl for pushing her son. Well, I'm having none of that. I stepped in and told her to stop yelling at the little girl because she was just defending herself after words hadn't worked. I don't remember word for word what we said, but it was along the lines of, "She pushed my baby and she needs to be punished." I say he kept grabbing her. She asked him to stop. He didn't. He's 2. He doesn't understand what he's saying. I say then you need to teach him what no and stop means, or you can keep him in his class where he's supposed to be. He's just a baby and he likes to hug. I say, well, that's what you're here for. He has no right to come into my class and grab any of my kids. It was just a hug. I say, but she said no. She clearly didn't like it and she has a right to not be hugged. Your son didn't listen, you did nothing to try to teach him, and she pushed him. She tried to use her words, the adults didn't stop it, what else was she supposed to do? They say, it doesn't matter if she didn't want him to hug her, she shouldn't have hit him. I say, and he shouldn't have touched her. But if you refuse to teach him about consent, you're going to have to accept that your little r-ist is going to get hit. She was kind of shocked by this, so I doubled down saying, it doesn't matter if he's 2. If you don't teach him how to respect people's boundaries and understand what no means, when he gets older, either he's going to get hurt or you'll be standing at trial saying, I don't know how this happened. And I'll be right there to say you didn't teach him. Then she went back to her class and decided to actually keep her child with her. I don't think she was pleased, but frankly, I don't care. You can't wait until your son's 15 or 16 to start expecting him to respect other people and their boundaries. And he was hurting a little girl. She was clearly feeling extremely unsafe, and the mom blamed her. Little girls shouldn't have to put up with this because a boy is too young to understand. Teach him then, so the mom can suck it if she didn't like it. So, I'm no expert on child development goals and how much you can teach a kid and where they should be developmentally. But considering this kid was 2 years old, do you guys feel like OP's going a little far with this? Don't get me wrong, in this situation, the mom should have taken more control of their kid, but do you guys also feel like OP went too far? Especially considering they went and basically called the kid an r-ist. when, let's be real, the kid is 2 years old? Let me know if you guys agree with me in the comments down below. Our next story is from Naginayo 101, my mother in the entitled Moms Club, and my introduction to the Boys Only Club. Sorry for the long title, but my mother's the one who told me about this one incident where she had been humiliated, and I was also in the same boat with her. My mother said this happened between me being 7 to about 9, and this involved a playgroup setting. It was just a group that got together who were Star Wars fans, and my mom saw the flyer on a bulletin board at my school. She really thought this was a great way to get me to make friends with fellow fans. She really wanted this to work. I was bullied enough for being a Star Wars fan back then, and this was during the 1980s, so yeah, not a lot of kids who I knew liked it. The club was set up at a lady's house, and it was pretty much downhill from there. My mom said it was on the first Saturday of every month, and it was Star Wars related crafts and movies. The meeting went from 5 p.m. to about 7 p.m. give or take. Arriving at the house, I was ready. She said I was on cloud 9 and the shock just made it worse. We walked in and it was all boys. There was no combination of girls to boys, just that. My mom told me to just try, and I went to the craft table to work on an X-Wing coloring book page. And my mom was now with the jackals, as she called these 6 ladies. She said the more she sat there listening, the more she wanted to just grab me and go. From what she said, this was the conversation between my mother and 2 of the moms. Mom 1 says, "Don't you think it's weird for a girl to like Star Wars? It's clearly for boys." My mom says, "No, she likes it and I'm not changing her mind." Mom 2 says, "Well, it's weird. She needs to be playing house or with Barbies." My mom says, "Oh, he doesn't like Barbies or playing house." Mom 1 says, "Maybe you should get her a psychiatrist. She clearly has mental problems if she's playing with boys' toys." My mom heard enough and went to check on me. I was sitting at a table alone. Nobody would talk to me, and my mother looked really upset. She said we should go and she'd take me to get dinner. She had to explain why I was being sort of kicked out of things, and it hurt, and I could tell she was hurt. My mom's entitled at times, but this was a conversation she felt horrible about, and still to this day, she hated telling me why. She told me that this was the boys only club and that I wasn't allowed there. I can still like Star Wars and still be happy to have fellow fans, but that group was never going to accept me. As I got older, she brought it up less about how much she felt bad for us, because we really wanted to have a group we fit in with. So to sum it up, my mom finds a group meeting for fellow Star Wars fan kids, and it turns into a horrible incident of sexism aimed at her and myself. My mother decides to leave after she's told to take me to a shrink because I don't like Barbies. I mean, it's definitely one thing to be perpetuating stereotypes against people that you don't even know, but for these several mothers to be doing it against an innocent girl? You would feel like, if anything, those mothers should be able to connect and understand where the girl's coming from, not shame them and say that they need psychiatric help. I mean, obviously nowadays, you hope that if you had that exact same scenario, it would just go a lot differently because the expectations and acceptance of stuff like that is just way better nowadays, clearly, than it was in the 1980s. But the sad thing is, you never know, this exact situation could still happen today. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our next story is from Megs Wills. How can you be so unaware of your surroundings? Just a little vent. Went food shopping yesterday and it was pretty rammed. I tend to go food shopping as late as possible to avoid crowds and families, and yesterday reinforced exactly why I do that. Anyway, there was this one mommy who was in her own world. Pushchair in one hand, basket in the other, but it was one of those baskets on wheels. She was managing to take up an entire aisle with her pushchair on one side and the basket on the other. She didn't have headphones in, and her child wasn't making any noise. She was just choosing to ignore people. Myself and many others tried to say excuse me and get past her since she was walking 0.5 miles per hour, and she wouldn't even acknowledge me, let alone move. She stopped and started looking at some products. I said excuse me again, and she continued to ignore me. So I pushed her basket across lightly with my foot, unblocking the walkway, and strolled past, a few others following behind me. She thankfully didn't react and probably didn't realize that I'd moved her crap to unblock the walkway. I just don't get how anybody can be so unaware of their surroundings. Like, you're blocking up an entire walkway. Maybe switch your ditzy brain on and freaking move. Somebody that's just like that disconnected makes me wonder, do they have something more going on? Like, who knows, maybe this person has so much going on that they're just kind of numb in the real world and they're kind of just like not registering. Or they could just totally be an airhead. Hardly a thought in their head besides what kind of instant rice do they want. I'm not saying that I'm great at multitasking, but there's some people who just cannot do anything but focus on one task at a time. Our next story is from an anonymous poster. My religious dad thinks he's the most righteous person in the house. My dad won't accept advice and will even take it as offense. He always brings religion into fights and he has a massive ego. He takes and reads my phone while I'm sleeping and he installs cameras in my room. I'm a straight A student. My motivation is to get out of this house as soon as possible. And yet he doesn't trust me to study in my own room. He wants me to study in his room where he can keep an eye on me to make sure I'm not looking at adult entertainment or anything. I'm not. Recently he grounded me because one of my classmates said a subtle "D's nuts" joke at the group chat. My dad interpreted it as something overtly sexual. When I was in the 5th grade, I had a really good friend with only one flaw. Sometimes he swears in group chats. My dad directly confronted my ex-best friend and broke our friendship. My friend introduced me and sort of mentored me in piano and programming, 2 of my favorite activities in the world. He even brought this matter to the principal, all because of a single crap he said when he was venting. Now the whole freaking school hates me. Strangely enough, unlike other kids my age, I enjoy school more than being in my home. He doesn't allow me to use social media and he monitors almost everything I do. I feel like he's hindering my true potential. I've also even made several attempts to bond with him, all failed. One time when I was in 2nd grade, he hit someone for slamming the door with some other kids still in the school parking lot. He had to undergo surgery after that. Needless to say, if this dad never changes their act, that's the kind of parenting where the result is their kid the day they turn 18 flies the coop. And that parent probably almost never hears from them again. Just having to deal with some hyper-restrictive, constantly overbearing helicopter parent over anything you do, anything you say, I think it makes you from such a young age just seek that freedom. They basically just run these kids out of their lives because it's just too much. Our next story is from Living in Heck. Parents have banned me from cooking due to electric prices. The other night, they were cooking fish, and I've never liked fish, as they well know. This had never been a problem until the last month or so, but the other night they cooked fish for dinner, so I said I would cook my own dinner. As soon as I said that, they lost it and said I'm wasting electricity when they cooked me a nice dinner. Ridiculous when they know I don't eat fish. I only wanted to use the hob to cook some eggs, but that was apparently a big deal. That was when I questioned it. They said buy a takeaway, which I think is unreasonable, as making a dinner for one would cost about £2 but buying a takeaway could easily cost £10 minimum. They then have the audacity to say things like, why are you buying takeaways when you should be saving money for a house? It's like they don't even listen to what's coming out of their mouths. Since it's 2 against 1, I can't reason with them as they both delude each other that they're right and everyone else are the ones that are wrong. I mean, I don't know if it's possible to calculate how much electricity your stove would use. I mean, it definitely would probably be less than $2 just to cook some eggs, or £2 in this situation. So maybe it's worthwhile to say, oh, well, I'll cover the electric costs of using this stove for 5 minutes to cook some eggs. Here, have £2. If they don't accept that, then they're clearly just digging for an argument. This next story is from Going With The Flow 333. Entitled Mother won't stop gifting me items despite requesting she stop. Advice welcome. Hi everyone. My narcissistic mom, so naturally also an entitled mother, has a habit of giving me random gifts at random times. Sometimes it's literally her old stuff like clothing or decor. I know it may sound really bratty of me and I don't want to seem ungrateful, but I get very stressed out by excess junk, clutter, and stuff to deal with. I have ADHD and currently live in a small space, so keeping it clutter-free is really important to me. I've also moved 10 times in the last 10 years. so I really like to avoid collecting excess trinkets. I don't drive, and the nearest donation drop-off is a 40-minute transit ride, so it's a nuisance to go and have to do that every time my mom brings random stuff. And there's only so many people I can keep giving things to, and honestly, I feel bad about that. They don't want this random stuff either, even for birthdays and Xmas. I say to both my parents, you don't have to feel like you need to get me anything, just spending time together would be enough. The stuff she gets isn't useful items either. It's often large, bulky decor, lots of random bugs, bowls, dishes, lots of clothing that isn't my size or style, dusty old books from the thrift store she thinks looks cool, lamps, hair, skin soap products I can't use because of my fragrance sensitivity, etc. She is a big impulse buyer and kind of a hoarder herself. I've worded it to my mom also in a way where I say, I understand you're trying to be thoughtful by buying me stuff, and I appreciate that and don't want to seem ungrateful for your efforts. But for me, it causes stress, and it would mean a lot if you could avoid doing this. She continues to do this, obviously, and sometimes I think she does it antagonistically and thinks it's funny, saying, I know you hate stuff, but I just love this thing. One time she bought me a t-shirt from Walmart that said grateful. That is not at all my style or size. I told her to take it home and went through the whole stop buying me random stuff convo. And she said okay, but after she left, I found it folded in a drawer. I was honestly so mad I threw it in the garbage. Not my proudest moment, but I just lost it. I've tried making her take things home with her or not letting her bring it into the apartment, but she sends it with other people or finds a different way. My birthday is coming up, and this is when she likes to get me the physically largest and most bizarre items because I can't really tell her not to get me gifts on my birthday. Anyone have advice for dealing with this? I hope I don't sound awful and ungrateful. My question is, why can't OP say that they don't want anything for their birthday? I don't think it's crazy for OP to put their foot down and say, guys, I don't want anything for my birthday. All I want is to spend time. And frankly, I think you could even go far enough to basically say, if you can't respect that and respect my birthday wishes, then you're a major jerk. I mean, maybe not as blunt as that, but I personally feel like anybody is entitled to having a birthday that they want. And if they want something lower key, or they almost want no celebration at all, or they don't want presents, I think that's a totally fine request. They don't have to feel like they can't turn down something just because it's their birthday. Our next story is from Cap America Jr. Mom believes she should benefit at my expense. Not very close with either of my parents. They weren't the best growing up, and have since removed them from my life. When I bought my first home a few years ago, I ended up moving in with my then girlfriend, now wife. Her apartment was very close to both our employers, so it made sense, and was looking for some renters. I didn't know much about renting out, so I was looking for someone who could pay the rent equal to my mortgage. Didn't take long after posting on a few sites. Before I found my tenant, I mentioned to my mom that I was going to rent it out for a while. She immediately stated that I should rent it to her. I was already uncomfortable with that because she's not the best with money. We were housing commission / government milk poor growing up, and my parents already made some questionable decisions that forced my siblings and I to pay some loans that did not belong to us. Trying to be polite, I let her know what the rent would be, and she was offended by that amount. She stated that as my mother, she should live in my home at half the rate. I let her know that doing so would put me in the position to pay the mortgage and half the rent of the new apartment. She claimed it's the right thing to do, and at that point I just stopped talking. I ended up moving pretty far for a new job, massive pay raise, manager title, and my wife came with me. She had family in the area and was okay with the move. I told my mom the great news, and she began scolding me about how I should live closer to her and not further. At this point, I realized that she only cared about what benefits her, and stopped all communication. It's been almost a decade since I've spoken to her. I still communicate with my siblings, and they ask if I've forgiven her. I say yes, but prefer to keep the separation. Happy with my decision. I mean, sadly, this is a very real story where you realize somebody's really only keeping you around or trying to hold you back because, well, they want something from you, or you help them out a lot, or they're just using you as like a weird comfort thing. At some point you realize you cannot allow somebody to hold you back like that. Be the butterfly and emerge from that cocoon. Our next story is from Los Gos. I'm the entitled parent today. I'd just like to share. 2 teenage girls standing outside the public toilets, where I spent 5 Swedish krona to use with my 2 small children, 6 and 2-year-old girls. I already had enough with them being silly, the 6-year-old chewing gum off the pavement, and the fact that I'm going through a divorce with less than 1,200 plus Swedish krona in my bank account and 10,000 other expenses to pay. 1,200 Swedish krona is about $106 US, by the way. So I wasn't gonna let these 2 teenage girls use the bathroom for free. They look like they could afford the bathroom by themselves, makeup and fancy clothes, some jewelry, etc. All the fancy stuff, while I have to worry about how to get food for the next meal for my kids. So I got called the witch today just because I wouldn't let them use my 5 krona for free. I told them they look like they have money, so use their own 5 krona instead of using mine. I already had enough and didn't feel like having 2 spoiled teenage girls using the bathroom for free on my expenses. Granted, I could have let them use it for free, but the way they said it was so unappealing to my situation, so screw that. If it was a parent with a small kid or 2 or more, I would have totally let her use the bathroom. So yes, I'm the entitled parent today. Have a nice time, folks. So I haven't ever been anywhere where it was like the bathroom themselves have a fee to actually access the bathrooms, but it seems to me the common etiquette is one person pays for it and, holds the door open for the person behind them, so, not everybody has to pay up for it. But refusing to do so for these girls, I don't think necessarily makes you an entitled parent. I mean, they'd probably be quick to label you whatever they could to make you feel bad, but really you weren't doing anything but really following the rules. Our next story is from Degassi Survivor 230, the most messed up Karen I've seen yet. This happened a few weeks ago. I take the train to travel to and from work. The train rides are fairly peaceful journeys, even if there's one person blasting music loudly or someone else screaming. However, I was not expecting this. For clarification, we'll call her kid C, and the Karen of the story, entitled Mother. For me, I'll be going by M. I was sitting on the train and waiting for it to leave the station. A mother and her son walk on and sit in the seats behind mine. I bring a word search with me to pass the time. As the train moves, I feel a small tap on my shoulder. It's her kid. The child says, "Nice mask, where'd you get it?" with a little smile. I say, "Thanks, my mother made it for me. She makes masks out of fabric and sells them to help others." He then asked the question I was not expecting. "Can I have it?" I replied with no, as the mask has my germs and these are challenging times. He just turned away, a little disappointed as he went over to where his mother sat and told her about what I'd said. I then felt someone grab me by the shoulder. Entitled Mother says, "Why'd you tell him no? It's just a mask. He's interested in it." I told him no because it has my germs and saliva, and it would be unhealthy for him to wear it. I also explained to him that these were challenging times. From that, the entitled mother turned away and pouted at me, glaring at me until she needed to take her son to the bathroom and stood up. For those of you wondering if this encounter had ended yet, it wasn't over. The train arrives at another station, and a blind person with a black guide dog walks onto the carriage and sits down on the disabled seat. As soon as the train starts moving again, the entitled mother walks out with her son in tow and lets out a gasp of horror, like she'd just seen a crime. "Who allowed that thing on the train?" She pointed her finger at the disabled person. I thought she was pointing at the woman, which was quite rude. I then noticed she wasn't pointing at the person, but their dog instead. The other people on the train ignored this, but I wasn't the type of person just to watch someone, whether they be a human or animal, be abused. I stood up and walked over to her. I said, "Why are you being so rude? It's just a service dog. It's not hurting anyone," I explained. The blind person looked distressed at this point. The entitled mother looked at me and then gave me a reply that really annoyed me. "But it's a black guide dog. Black animals shouldn't be allowed on this train. They shouldn't be allowed anywhere." I was deeply hurt by this, and thankfully the train arrived at her stop as soon as she finished talking. She flashed me an angry glare as she left. I was glad it was over. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get this wrong, but was this entitled parent racist against a dog? Are they worried about bad omens because black animals are cursed or something apparently? I mean, not only is she an entitled parent, but she seems just a bit out there, a bit loopy. Our next story is from Historical Promise 90. My mother wanted me to be a boy. My mom, 45-year-old female, has told me, 21-year-old female, a few times that she thought I was going to be a boy when she was pregnant with me, and she even went as far as to say she would have named me Keyshawn if I was. The first time she told me this, I was a kid. I didn't think much of it because I was a child, but as I got older, I realized that my mom treats me the way she does because she didn't want to have a daughter. She wanted all their kids to be boys, and as I grew up, my mom always treated me worse than my brothers. And I never understood why until now. My mom has always resented me and loved me less because I'm a girl. My elder brother got what he wanted, got to do whatever he wanted, had a phone at a very young age, got to go out to parties and hang out and spend the night with friends, attend school functions, sports games, etc. While I had to work hard for everything. She wouldn't help me with anything, always. Had unattainable goals for me, pushed unrealistic standards on me, wasn't able to have fun with my friends, made my ringer brother my responsibility, wouldn't let me take birth control so I could purposely get pregnant when I lost my V card to my then long-term boyfriend. The list just goes on. I realized that my mom not only pushed unrealistic rules and standards on me that she couldn't even live up to, but tried to live vicariously through me. Then the piece of cake, when my fiancé, boyfriend at the time, were moving out together. My mom told me that she didn't think us moving out together was a good idea, but she claims she likes him and then proceeded to say, "Don't have his child until he makes you his wife." But she didn't get married before she had kids. Fast forward, now we got engaged and she still wasn't happy. She said I shouldn't carry his child until we're married, on top of not telling us congratulations on getting engaged, and ignoring my calls when trying to show her I tried on wedding dresses, and then her answering lying saying she was driving and her calling me back. I told her I was trying on wedding dresses, only for there to be crickets on the phone with no reaction at all. So in short, I've moved out since then and got a place with my fiancé, and have gone low contact with my mom. She's made my life a nightmare, and I'm glad to be away from her and her drama. I'm so happy to have finally gotten out and away from her abuse. Anyone else have a similar experience with their mom? I definitely can't relate to this kind of a situation, but there's a weird kind of, I don't think gaslighting is the right term, but just this weird honestly, it just kind of sounds like they're not listening to OP at all, and they just kind of keep parroting the same points that they feel pop up into their brain. Whatever OP does, whatever OP tries to do, doesn't register in this entitled parent's mind. They just keep saying the same things. Don't carry his child until they marry you. What I'm struggling to understand is why are they trying to avoid OP now that they're getting engaged and getting married? Needless to say, I think it's time to cut somebody like that off. Because for one thing, they're not reliable, and God forbid, if you have kids with your fiancé, you do not want to subject them to a grandma like that. And our final story of the day is from OK Newspaper 9218. I guess they're gonna starve now. So I, 20-something female, am an expat living in the Netherlands for almost 5 years now. I was originally from Venezuela and totally hate that heckhole and poverty and the sense of dread that comes to live in a place when no matter how much you do work, you're never gonna make enough to live well. I left the country with the help of my now husband because I didn't even have the possibility to do that without external help and live comfortably in this new country. I got a brother 10 years younger than me, and he's practically my baby more than a brother. I helped raise him, and even when I left, the only reason I got for sending money was him. He was my main priority, always. Fast forward to the past week, my brother called me from an unknown number, a friend's phone, sobbing, telling me that our family kicked him out of the house because they discovered he was bi. Something I already knew, but we agreed to never let our family know until he's legal. He's a minor still. I was furious, so of course I cut immediately the payments for everything in that household. Healthcare, doctor insurance, food, rent, services, internet. Yep, I was paying for it all. I reached out to a friend I left in the country and paid her, because she didn't have the money to do it herself, to pick him up and keep him in her house until I can figure out what I can do legally to get him here. Our family noticed that the cash flow stopped and had the audacity to call me to ask about it, and I told them to screw themselves with a gosh darn cactus. Since they kicked out my brother, they'll never get a penny more from me. They cried that my uncle was gonna die if they didn't continuously pay for the dialysis machine, which was due to pay on the 21st. True in our country. I told them too bad, I'm not sending more money for cremations. I already paid for 3 of those family members who didn't have the means. So they have to figure out what to do next. They were entitled to my money for years, sucking like leeches, and I was tolerating them because my relationship with most of them wasn't so bad, and they were taking care of my brother. Now, because they abandoned him, I will move sky and earth to seek a legal means to bring him here. Adopting him, I don't know. I found a lawyer today and got an appointment set for Friday. And when my brother's here, I will never ever contact them again. They can all starve to death for what I care. They're blasting me on social media, and some people are reaching out to me telling me I'm being too harsh, but I don't think I'm in the wrong. They brought this upon themselves. I mean, obviously, I think the levels of acceptance in some place like Venezuela versus most countries at the forefront, United Kingdom, the US, Canada, those kinds of places, it's a lot less tolerant for being bi or gay in those places. So sadly, it's no surprise they treated them like that just because they're bi. But yeah, if this is a person that somebody cares about deeply, a sibling of the person that's paying for everything, to keep you alive, really, you think they would rather just try to deal with it, but no. If that's something they can't deal with and they're going to try to kick OP's sibling to the curb, basically leave them out there to die, well, then I guess the same's going to happen to them. Also, I love in the beginning, OP said, "My English is self-taught, so please be kind." And in this story, they go and use the sentence, "I told them to screw themselves with a god darn cactus." I wonder where they picked that one up from. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy entitled parent story, click on that left video. Or if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.